So I want to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Brian Cristiano. Brian's from Bold Worldwide. They're a fast-growing marketing and media company based out of New York City. And he's a self-made entrepreneur, marketer, storyteller. He's had the opportunity to work with some great companies like Tropicana, the New York Mets, Gillette, and others. He's been covered in the Wall Street Journal, CBS News, and several other publications. Brian's got some really bold goals. In fact, one of his goals is, and he's openly declared that he plans to grow his ad agency to over $100 million. And he's declared that, and he's sharing that story through his own docu-series, Growing Bold. But it's his passion for helping other companies grow that really has me excited for him to be here with us today. He'll share with us his real-world tactics for crushing the silos in your organization, and he'll work to empower you to get out of your comfort zone, something we really support here at Adept Experience. So please give a warm welcome to Brian Cristiano.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction, and I'm super excited to speak here today. This is such a great room, and I've heard a little bit about some of you, and Martha and everyone at Synergis are just fantastic, fantastic people, and I think that video with everyone talking about the culture is just such a great example of companies that get it. And I'm excited to talk about crushing silos so that you can grow. We are living through the greatest economic shift of our lives right now, today, which is the biggest opportunity for our growth right now. Like, it's happening today. But first we have to crush the silos. And what do I mean by that, right? What silos? I think we all understand really what that means, but let's put a quick little definition on it. It's really the segmentation of information, people, departments, who are acting almost as like micro businesses within a larger organization. That happens in business, that happens in life, personally. And what happens is, we all know this, because I'm sure we've seen it or experienced it daily or have experienced it before, where things just don't happen as effectively or as efficiently as they could because of these little segmented pieces of information. How many of you have experienced either working in a silo or have seen it in your company or other companies? Raise your hand. Most people, right? Of course, of course. Let's see if I can see this a little bit bigger here. Great. As we're moving through this new time of business, right, there's the old way of how everything has worked, and then over these last 5, 10, maybe 15 years, so much has changed. Entire businesses and industries and organizations have changed. So there's the old way, and then there's the new way. And the old way was siloed information. Sales has to go to marketing to understand what they're doing. Marketing has to go to sales to understand their numbers. Product has to go to engineering. Engineering has to go to IT, and so on and so forth. And everyone has to go through finance or something, right? Because all of this information has been siloed, but the new way is instant access to information for all of us. And what's fantastic is everyone that's sitting in this room, you wouldn't be here if you didn't understand that. I mean, that's what Adept is. That's what Synergis does, is gives us instant access to the information that's important. But there's other pieces of this too. The old way was strategy drives decision. And what I mean by that is, well, let's come up with the plan. And this can be in a department. This can be in your own life. This could be as an organization as a whole. What's the plan? What do we want to accomplish? Where do we want to go? What do we think we can do? And let's put a strategy together based on that. And today, data drives strategy. Because we have access, or we should, to all of the information that we could need in order to make strategic decisions. And when you utilize that information and that data to make the strategy, now it's not just what we want to do. Now it's actually guided and based in fact and information that we can then measure. It's a very big difference. It's a very big change. And before, the old way was broadly defining customers. Right? I run an advertising agency, a media marketing business solutions firm, and I can't tell you how many times I still today see organizations just broadly defining their customer. And I'll give you an example, right? If we go back, it still happens every day right now, and I'm sure you can relate to it. If we go back even 10 or 15 years before digital marketing was really big, before social media was a thing, before all of us had one of these in our pockets, big brands would say, hey, our demographic is women with children, broadly defined. And then they buy massive TV media buys because they know that women with children typically watch some of these programs or these channels. So if we buy enough of it, they'll see it, and we tell them about our product, they will buy it. Well, today, in a whole nother different keynote, would be talking about how TV and that is not efficient or effective and doesn't work like it used to. But that was broadly defining our customers. Today, I can go right now on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and I can know I can have a one-to-one relationship with as many customers as I want. B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. I can know everything about anyone I want to, right? Before it was moms or women with children was the demographic, and today it's Susan in Nebraska who actually doesn't have kids and doesn't want to and is an athlete and so forth. Oh, and she loves our product. She loves our service. And she has a question, and I can talk to her. Having that kind of information and that kind of a relationship changes everything, because before, the old way was product-centric businesses. And if you think back to pretty much every TV commercial, even a lot today, but you think back, further and you say, okay, what was all of the marketing? It was, here's what we have. We have this widget that does these 5 things, and we do it better than anybody else, and it's priced in a way that you're going to buy it. And people bought. But today, it's about customer-centric businesses. And this is a perfect example while we're all here in this room, because it's really about you. It's about the customer. It's about understanding on really a one-to-one basis who your customers really are, what their needs are, what their problems are, and how does what you do solve it for them. It's not about the features. It's about the relationship. That's the new way of business today. And we know what the old way of business gets us. I won't keep this up here too long, but yikes, right? I mean, these companies, now you can argue and say, hey, they weren't just crushed by silos. Sure, there's a lot of things that aided in those businesses either not being around or going into bankruptcy, but the reason that it happened is it starts with a silo. Blockbuster had more information about what people watched, when they watched it, how frequently they watched it, when they wanted to watch it, who those people were. That information was segmented in one part of the company. They didn't make decisions on that. They made decisions based on completely other things. They could have been Netflix. There's no difference. They almost were, but they decided not to make that move because they weren't actually understanding what the customer wanted. That information was siloed, and that wasn't considered into the larger picture to make a decision. Companies that actually break down the silos and remove them have unlimited opportunity. That's the beautiful part about this, right? I don't want to sour it with a bunch of logos that are a little toxic right now. But when we understand this, and I think everyone that's in this room really gets it, or we wouldn't be here, man, the opportunities are completely unlimited because most brands, most companies, most businesses, most people aren't even thinking about this. But how do silos happen? Well, number one is poor access to information. And we know that. You've all experienced it. I mean, you're solving it with their software, but poor access to information. If all of the information that has the answers that I need or can dictate better decisions from a business perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, from a product perspective, if that information is siloed off somewhere else in the organization and I don't know about it, I'm going to make very different decisions. There's poor access to information that creates a silo. Number two is them versus us departments. I'm sure you've heard some of this before. Oh, that's marketing doesn't understand sales. Sales is about closing deals. Marketing just thinks making pretty ads, right? And marketing is like, guys, they don't understand. It's about really telling a story before you can sell stuff. Engineering say, oh man, they don't understand really what we're doing here from a back-end perspective for the product and design and on. And finance just doesn't understand anything sometimes, right? But it's them versus us. It's one department pivoting itself against another, pinning itself against another department. It's, well, we need to make this work for marketing without thinking about how it impacts sales. And sales feeling like marketing doesn't get sales, right? That's a silo. And then lack of focus on the customer. Because when we're all focused internally about what we want, what we think, what we want the organization to be, we forget who is this really about. It's not about us. It's not about the department. It's not marketing versus sales. It's not engineering versus finance. It's all of us working together collaboratively for who? The customer. The thing is, though, I'm sure you're like, yeah, this stuff's obvious. It's not rocket science. There's literally rocket scientists in here. Brilliant engineers, brilliant minds. They're like, yeah, this stuff is so obvious, but why isn't it being changed? Why aren't we talking about these things? Why aren't we actually breaking down the silos? We're waiting for permission. Let me, if you guys don't mind, just very simple. Does everybody stand up for a second? I want to show you something. All right, everybody raise your right hand. All right, raise it as high as you can go. As high as you can go. Raise it 1 more inch. Almost every single one of your hand went a little bit higher. Why? We're waiting for permission. Your hand could go that extra inch, but it didn't happen until I gave you permission to do it. It's just such a simple example. You can sit down if you'd like. You can stand too, that's cool. I don't mind it. Room feels fuller. But we're waiting for permission. And that's just human nature. Well, we can't change this. It is that department. This is this leadership decision. It is management. It's this and this. Because no one's giving you permission to just go and change it and not think that way, right? Tell you a quick little personal story here. So when I was a teenager in the 90s, when it was still cool, I wanted to be a pro skater. My mom is so thankful that didn't happen. And I was really good, but I wasn't good enough. I was friends with a lot of guys in the X Games and stuff. But when I realized at some point, 16 years old, 15, 16 years old, that I wasn't going to be a pro skater, but I was surrounded by all these really talented people. And I don't know what it was in my head. I just said, hey, you know what? I should make a skate video. I should make skate videos. This would be really cool. And this is the 90s before YouTube and everything existed. I was like, man, there's no one filming a lot of this stuff. I was on the East Coast. Most of it happened on the West Coast. I felt like I could tell these stories, make these videos. I had no idea what I was doing. I come from a total blue-collar family. My mom's a teacher. Dad's in the Air Force. No entrepreneurs, no artists, nothing. I don't know. I just kind of felt it. I said, hey, this is a good idea. Let me do it. By the time I was 16 years old, I just figured it out, saved up, busboy, bought a camera, so forth. By the time I was 16 years old, I'd sold that video that's up there. I sold that video to a distribution company and made $40,000, which is not a bad payday for a 16-year-old. A little dangerous. But the thing about this is, and the reason I'm telling you this story, is because everyone told me, family, parents, mom, dad, teachers, everyone told me, well, that's cool. You got lucky. Well, first of all, I already said it wasn't going to happen anyway, but then, all right, you did it, but you can't make a career out of making videos. Right now. Can't make a career out of making videos. You can't just jump right into this and make skate videos for a living or whatever else you're going to do with it. You got to go to college. You got to check off these boxes. You got to do it in a certain order until somebody gives you permission to do it, right? You have to do things in a certain order. So that's nice. You got lucky. That's cool. Now, go do it the way everybody's supposed to do it. And so that year, it's my dad. I was a little bit younger there. It's October. I figured I'd pick the pumpkin photo. So that year, my dad's in the Air Force. So fast forward to my senior year in high school, 18 years old. My dad was retiring that year. He had over 30 years in the military. He was lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, second in command of the base. Amazing guy. Learned a tremendous amount from him. I will say the lieutenant colonel in the Air Force with a teenage son who wants to be a pro skater is didn't really align, but that's okay. He was an amazing person, very dedicated to his country and to the military, but he had all these other amazing dreams that he had, right? He was going to open this science center. He was going to go visit these other places in the world, and he was one of the people that kept telling me, all right, this is nice that you're doing this thing, but you got to go through the steps. You got to put your 30 years in, and then you retire, and then you can go do all of these other things that are really some of the bigger dreams that you have. Not that he he loved the military, but he had these bigger dreams, these bigger goals. And so that year when he was about to retire, he passed away the night before his last day at work. Totally unexpected. And that, that Friday was supposed to be his retirement party, turned into his funeral. And, as a senior in high school, a kid trying to figure my way out in the world, it really hit me, obviously, on many levels. But what it really made me realize was, wow, this is kind of crazy. Why am I waiting for somebody else to give me permission to go and do what I already know I want to do? What am I waiting for? Am I going to go put in 30 years doing something maybe I like, but not really is my ultimate dream and goal, to maybe not ever have it happen? That seems insane to me. And so that's completely changed my entire perspective on life, on business, and it's gotten me where I am today. I quit college. I dropped out. I started a production company, and things were going really, really well, like really well. The early 2000s. And started to grow, started doing really, really awesome. I'm moving my company into Manhattan. We got office. I got some more employees, living in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, like living the dream, early 20s, college dropout, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. But then there's also the reality of, well, now you have a bunch of overhead and employees and payroll and and nobody taught me any of this stuff. And so one day I woke up, or at least it felt this way. I woke up and I'm $250,000 in debt. I am missed payroll that week. I'm 2 months behind on personal rent. I come home and there's the yellow eviction notice on my door. I'm like, holy crap, what do I do here? And I really didn't know what to do. And the thing about it was, because I was trying to prove everyone wrong, that the way that it was totally wrong. I'm going to do it this other way. And now all of a sudden it's smacking me in the face saying, well, maybe you should have done it the way everyone told you. So I didn't talk to anybody about this. My mom didn't even know this until I started publicly telling the story and sharing it online 2 years ago. She had no idea. Seriously, nobody, I didn't talk to anybody about this. I siloed it off to myself because I'm I got to figure this out. I can't tell anybody. I can't admit defeat. But the reality is, if I miss one more month's payment on my personal rent, I'm homeless. So the only thing I thought I could do was I rented out my apartment in the Upper East Side. This lovely French gentleman who was just who just moved to the city to be the head pastry chef of the Waldorf Astoria was great, I'll take it. This seems like a really good deal. What's the catch? I go, oh yeah, by the way, somebody's going to live on the couch. That's cool, right? And that was me. I lived on the couch for 6 months. Totally ignoring my problems, siloing off. It wasn't that I wasn't working. I still go to the office. I grind through. I check the boxes. Wasn't talking to anybody about this. Living on the couch, 6 months, and very depressed. And the one night I come home, I remember about 6 months into this, and it was just a miserable day. Because I can tell you, man, when you're $250,000 in debt and missing payroll and all that, every single cell phone call that you get is not a good one. And so I come home. I'm totally burned out. It's midnight. I get there. And he's all excited. He's like, oh, dude, you gotta watch this awesome documentary I'm watching. Come check it out. And he's sitting there on the couch. And I'm I just want to go to bed. And I can't. Because this guy's paying all the rent. Technically, it's his couch. He's just letting me live here. I got to watch a documentary for the next hour and a half. I couldn't even tell you what it was. But that was rock bottom for me because that and then when the power was turned off. But it's a longer keynote. And so that was rock bottom for me. And the next day I woke up and I was I have to make some changes. I have to start talking to other people. Other people have the solution to this. I got to start getting out there. I went to events. I started networking. I started reading books. I went to a seminar. Everything that I could possibly do to just figure out how I could get out of this situation. And there was one thing that I read, which is fascinating. You got to try this. You can do it in this room or later or somewhere else in private. But one of the things that I realized was someone said, hey, look, you want to understand how introverted you're being or how unconfident you're being? Go out on the street, and as somebody's walking by you, stare them in the eyes and don't break the stare first. That sounds so simple and so silly until I went out and I did that. And I realized, anyone look, I'd look away. Somebody look at me, I'd look away. I'm wow, I had no idea how unconfident and introverted I was being. That's not going to help turn around a company. That's not going to get me out of debt. That's not going to solve this problem for me. So I'm like, all right, I literally went on the street for 3 days. I'm staring everyone in the face until I finally was like, everyone was breaking my stare. And I'm like, yeah. And the funny part is, though, you think, like, that seems weird. New York City, nothing's weird. You can do that every day, and like there's somebody weirder than you, you look totally fine. Except that one guy that he didn't break the stare, and I didn't break the stare, and he's like, what? And I'm like, dude, I just read a book. It's cool. We're cool. Took me 14 months. I got off the couch. I got my apartment back. I got out $250,000 in debt. I didn't go bankrupt, and I made my first $1 million. I got out of my own silo. Being in my own little world, even though it's a microcosm of an example, stops you from your ultimate success, stops you from growth, stops you from learning, stops you from solving your problems. Getting out of my own head, my own silo, and starting to talk to people and go out and network and meet people solved everything. Getting out of my comfort zone by staring people in the eyes like a crazy person solved everything. And that's just my entrepreneurial journey and a little tiny taste of it, but it applies to everything, not only in business, but in life and in this room. And today, 12 years later, I run Bold Worldwide. We're a media and marketing company. We're also a business solutions firm, and some of our clients are PepsiCo, Jennifer Lopez, UFC Gym, Gillette, and on and on and on. We've done some incredible, incredible work, and we're on a journey to $100 million, and we document it. We've been featured literally everywhere. We're on the news all the time. This is one of our episodes with Alex Rodriguez, which, by the way, actually changed some of the public opinion of who he is. You could think whatever you want about Alex, but he actually is a good guy, but we told the story from our perspective and actually changed his perspective or in perception in the media. It's kind of fascinating. If you're waiting for change, if you're waiting for change to happen, it's too late. It already has, you just didn't participate. It's always happening. You're either involved in helping make the change or you're not. So, let's crush some silos, right? Now, how do we do this, right? This all sounds great, but how do we actually do this? First of all, share information openly like it will disappear if you don't. Some of the information that changed my life, changed our clients' lives, is information that other people have. And this can be globally, this can be externally, this can be within your organization and in your family. If you don't share this information, if it's not somewhere, if you're not talking to everybody, pretend like it's going to disappear and that's it. How much progress is made when information is shared? So much. It's incredible. And number two, act like someone else has your solution. That, I think, is one of the most important things, okay? That problem that you've been trying to solve for 6 months and you just don't know, Bob over there has your solution. You just haven't networked with him. You haven't talked to him. And I think that this is a prime example of, it doesn't matter if we're talking about, like, go to that other department. Go talk to marketing, go talk to engineering, go talk to finance, go talk to product development, even if that's not your department. Because I bet you all are really smart people and have other really great smart people in your organizations, but those silos, those walls, either literally or figuratively, are holding back all of that information, which is going to solve the problems, which will make you feel better, which will solve that problem, which will grow the company, grow your organization, grow your department. Because it's all siloed off, nobody knows. And even in this room, the best thing I ever did was I went out and I networked like crazy. You're here for the next handful of days. Go meet everybody. You don't know what they know and how they can help you if you don't talk about it openly. When you silo off your own self, you don't grow. And you hold yourself back. And last, ask yourself, how will this help my customer? This applies to every department. So as an ad agency, we work with Fortune 500s all the way down to startups. I see it so many times where everybody's thinking about, well, we got to hit this number. We want to tell this message. What does it do for the customer? Because at the end of the day, the customers are the only reason that the business exists. But everyone forgets that, especially when we're siloed off. We're thinking about, how does this impact this quarter, my number, this message I want to tell this department? And we're not thinking about, what does it do for my customer? And who are they? And I'll give you a quick example of how we've done this in a more broad scope for a client, UFC Gym. Great client, amazing company, amazing brand, hundreds of locations around the country and the world. Some of them are franchise owned. You've got the corporate level. You have all these different levels of the organization. And it was so siloed. And not intentionally so, it's just how the business grew. Because you have the franchise over here that has all this knowledge and information. You have another franchise on the other side of the country that has all this knowledge and information. And while everyone's looking at top-line numbers like sales and revenue and leads, no one's actually understanding, like, well, what's all the context that all of these different hundreds of locations have, right? And then we had sales who had different objectives, marketing that had different objectives, the franchises that had different objectives, the board that had different objectives. And the problem with that is everyone's operating in a silo, so no one's going to be ultimately successful. The brand's successful, but it can't be as successful as it possibly could be. And so in a short story, what we did was we figured out how to make sure that all of the data is organized from each one of these organizations, and not just on a very like sales numbers, typical operational perspective, but the context of what's working and why and in what areas. And overlaying that to see like what are the commonalities, like is it the Southeast is very similar, or is it just individual locations based on the areas? Looking at all of that information, and then guess what? Talking to their customers on a one-to-one basis to understand who are they and why do they go there and why do they leave, why do they stop, and really understanding all that, aggregating up to the top and showing everyone. We created some web software that aggregates all of this so that everyone from sales to marketing to the franchises see how each piece individually creates the larger picture. And it has been unbelievable, not just game-changing from a marketing perspective, but from a business perspective, because we broke down those silos. There are solutions everywhere. Just need to have the conversations. Some people want it to happen. Some people make it happen. Some people wish it would happen. Others make it happen, Michael Jordan. I think that's such a key quote. I love it. Because that's the thing here. We can talk about this. I can put bullet points up. We can have conversations. And that's awesome. That's great. But if we don't go back to our organizations and implement this and think, how do we break down the silos? Who else has my solution? Who else can I talk to? Who can I talk to here, today, tomorrow, tonight, that might have my solution? And maybe they don't. But you will never know if you don't find out. And if we don't put some of this into practice, we just continue to do everything the old way. You know, no one's going to give permission. We just have to take it. Once you understand that it's just up to us as individuals. It doesn't matter that, hey, maybe the organization isn't up for it, but if you start making those changes, you start breaking down those barriers, guess what happens? Everyone else starts to see the results and what happens, and it feels better. So let's grow. I'm very, very, very thankful to have been here to speak with you guys. I'm going to be here through the end of lunch. If you want to follow me on social media, @BoldCEO, we're actually launching season 2 of Growing Bold on YouTube and Facebook. @BoldCEO, you can find it. Growing Bold is the name of the series. But I'll be around here through after lunch. And so if you want to network with me, you can just pick my brain about the presentation, or talk about marketing, talk about business, talk about breaking down silos, or other additional tactics, because I can't obviously go through it all in 30 minutes. Feel free to grab me. I'll be around. I'd love to speak with anybody that would love my time. So thank you guys so much, and I hope that you have an amazing, amazing experience here at Adept Experience.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.